She didn't believe you'd walk away. She didn't think silence could ever be this cold, this permanent, this powerful. She mistook your loyalty for weakness. She thought your patience meant passivity. But what she didn't understand was this: your silence was not surrender. It was your evolution. You see, a man doesn't just go quiet. Not when he's poured his soul into someone. Not when he's shown up day after day, sacrificing parts of himself in the name of love, no. When a man like that stops speaking, it means the storm has moved inside. It means the war has been lost not to her, but to the version of himself he kept sacrificing. And that silence, that's rebirth in disguise. She thought your silence was emotional withdrawal, but it was training. Training to detach, training to reclaim, training to heal. While she was busy trying to measure how far she could push you before you'd finally snap. You were studying every moment, etching every betrayal into your nervous system, slowly collecting the fuel that would one day ignite your transformation. She believed your heart was a doormat, that no matter how many times she ignored your needs, dismissed your concerns, flirted with chaos and disrespected your boundaries, you'd stay. Because you always had until you didn't, and that's the day everything changed, because men like you don't scream. They don't explode, they don't create spectacle, they disappear. Completely, she played games, you kept score in silence. She flirted with attention, you remained steady. She posted thirst traps to provoke jealousy. You studied her intentions. She ignored your love, you remembered every moment. She bet on your emotional attachment. She lost, and now she sits in the aftermath, alone. Not because you hated her, but because you finally loved yourself. Somewhere along the way, she began to believe that your loyalty was her birthright. That being a woman meant she was owed your time, your energy, your devotion without reciprocation. The culture sold her a lie that effort is optional, that commitment should be one-sided, that a man's consistency is a weakness, not a virtue. She didn't love you. She loved what your love did for her ego. She never truly saw you. She saw the mirror you held up reflecting her beauty, her worth, her validation. The moment you stopped providing that reflection, she panicked, because now she sees herself without the filter of your adoration, without the security blanket of your forgiveness. And what she sees isn't enough, she thought. You'd always be the one texting first, the one planning dates, the one forgiving the disrespect, the one explaining himself just to keep the peace. But silence teaches what words never could. And your silence became her mirror. You weren't perfect, but you were present. You weren't trying to be her fantasy. You weren't perfect, but you were present. And in a world full of men chasing clout, validation, and instant pleasure, presence is rare. You showed up when she was spiraling. You stayed patient through her moods. You made sacrifices without complaint. You kept the ship afloat while she drilled holes through the hull with emotional chaos. You absorbed it all, the passive aggression, the mixed signals, the double standards. You gave her loyalty, exclusivity, protection. What did she give you? Conditions, excuses, vagueness, dismissal. And most dangerously, emotional distance. Masked as female empowerment, you believed that if you just kept showing up, she'd eventually see your worth. You were wrong, she saw it. She just didn't value it because in her mind, you weren't a treasure, you were a guarantee. And nothing loses value faster in a woman's world than a man who feels guaranteed. Let's be clear. You didn't give up. You gave all. You adapted. You softened. You rationalized her detachment. You convinced yourself she was just insecure, just confused, just stressed. You made excuses for the flirting, the breadcrumbing, the emotional withdrawal. You forgave and forgave, hoping each new chance would be the last chance she needed, but she didn't need chances. She needed a mirror, and you became one. You showed her what consistency looks like, what presence feels like, what emotional stability offers. And instead of rising to meet you, she sunk into the comfort of knowing you'd never leave. So she stopped trying, because effort dies. when respect disappears. And that's when you woke up. You looked in the mirror and didn't recognize yourself. You were drained, numb. A shell of the man you once were, and in that silence you heard something. Your own voice. The one you buried under compromise, under tolerance, under the hope that she'd finally choose you. And in that moment, you chose yourself, the new you doesn't chase. He commands, let's talk facts. You don't text first anymore. Not because you're playing games, but because you're done initiating. A connection she never truly appreciated. You don't check her socials. Not because you don't care, but because you've redirected that attention inward. Into your body, into your mission, into your future. You don't explain yourself anymore. You protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. You're not available for confusion anymore. You don't entertain what doesn't feed your spirit. You've stopped performing emotional CPR on women who flatline at the first sign of real connection. You used to wonder what you did wrong. Now you wonder how you ever allowed so much disrespect in the name of love. Your healing is not her closure shell come back. They always do, maybe not today, maybe not next month, but one night. When the noise fades, when the attention dries up, when the new options don't satisfy, she'll remember the man who loved her through her chaos, the man who made her feel seen, the man who kept choosing her even when she was acting unlovable. But by then, it's too late, because you're not a retreat. You're a revolution, and revolutions don't go backward. Let her miss you. Let her ache. Let her cry over what she thought would always be there. But don't let that pain reopen doors you locked. For a reason. Don't mistake nostalgia for a second chance. Don't confuse her regret for readiness. Let her sit in it. And while she does, you keep building. You build muscle, not for revenge, but for self-respect. You build income, not to flex, but to secure your freedom. You build emotional control, not to attract her back, but to attract peace, because peace is the new power. And you've tasted it. She never thought you'd leave, but you did, and that's the beginning of everything.